Let's go to 1 Samuel 33 and 4. When David and his men saw the ruins and realized what had happened to their families, they wept until they could weep no more. This past weekend, we really dove deep into this topic of enough to make a grown man cry. Enough to make a grown man cry. I mean this, man, and this is I say this with no ambiguity. I need a break. I need a break. I don't know about y'all, but lately I feel overwhelmed with images that are draining. I'm so tired of seeing black brothers killed in the streets. The protesting, the weight of trying to support protesters, trying to be there for my community, trying to pastor people through a pandemic. It's enough to make a grown man cry. Even today, watching the funeral of that beautiful brother from Atlanta, Georgia, and to see another mother have to be strong. Another mother have to be strong. That in itself is enough to make a grown man cry. I want to jump deep into this, and let's just kick this off real on a practical, plain level right here. Let's deal with the mythical myth that men don't cry. Men don't cry. Men don't cry. I want to go deep. Let's go here. Let's talk about some stuff that made you cry. I want to put you on the spot. Who want to go first? Some stuff that really peaked at your heart and kind of pulled some emotion out of you.
One in particular for me, and I saw a lot of it even in the text as you were preaching this past Sunday, but not being able to provide for my family when I was homeless. That was, watching my father. I was raised by my father, so my story is a little different than I know a lot of men's, but, watching how he provided and how he was a pastor and how he was there. And for me as his son, to not be able to feed my family, to be homeless, the reason we couldn't go to his house is because I was too ashamed because I knew he had raised me to be a better provider. So definitely being homeless and not being there for my family was something that made me cry.
Somebody jump in there. Somebody else. Anybody want to talk?
I think one of the things I'll say as well, I think feeling like you're falling short of God's expectation.
Wow.
In those moments where God has called you to be something and you haven't become it yet. Especially when you have other people around you who seem to be living in what God has called them to. Going through those moments, I think, were one of the things that pulled out the most emotion in me.
I'll never forget I'll never forget. You guys know my testimony. My oldest son is not by lady. He lives with me. I love him with all my heart. He's probably watching right now. Xander took him to football practice this morning. I'll never forget when he was a baby, his mom called me and said, Xander just used the pot. Man, I pulled over on the side of the road like a grown man. I'm bawling, crying, because I had to come to the grips of that reality that my son wasn't with me. And I think so many times as men, and I want to be patriarchal, and women, so many times as men and women, but more in a specific sense with men, people tend to think that we don't have emotions. Now let me talk about how ambivalent I am, because the moment you come out the womb, and you start crying, they say what? Be tough. Be tough. So from 0 to 18, you tell me to be tough. Then from the moment I turn 19 and want to get married, you tell me to be emotional. In our text today, we see some real men shed some tears. Verse 4 says they wept until they could weep no more. In our narrative tonight, we see one of the most emotional stories regarding men and fathers in the entire Bible. To give you some context so you can respect the contents, David and his men are preparing for battle. They leave to go to battle. David had forsaken his promised land and sought refuge among the unbelieving worldly Philistines for over a year now. They had been living among the Philistines, so much so that he even joined the armed forces and was poised to fight and strike against Israel. I said this weekend, I want to say it again. The first thing we see in the text that literally leaps out of the text is a man on the run. And I want to talk about that because whether we like it or not, in our communities, there are so many men on the run. Somebody jump in on there. What does it mean to be on the run?
Well, for me, Pastor, I think you find yourself in this space almost like Jonah when you're running away from responsibility. Many times when I find myself running, I'm running from something that God told me to do that I really would prefer not to. And I think for many men, being uncomfortable, maybe feeling unprepared. I thank God for a wonderful relationship that I have with my father now, but for many years we didn't have that relationship. And so becoming a father myself, I initially felt unprepared. And so if you're not careful, you'll run from that.
Man, I never forget the first time I held Mike at home now. I got Mike at home, and this is crazy. I'm sitting there looking at him, and lady, my mom goes home. Lady goes to the restroom. I'm sitting in the den by myself, holding Mike, and this overwhelming sense of, bro, this on me. This on me. And I'm just looking at him trying to make sure he's still breathing. That was enough to make me run. When we look at this particular text, why, I'm going to talk to my scholars in the room, why is David on the run? Somebody jump in there.
So at this point, David is on the run because he's been anointed king at this point, and he has actually come into the service of Saul. He's moved into the palace. He's actually a part of his armed forces. And Saul knew who David was. Back in 1 Samuel 15, Saul originally went to war against the Amalekites. And when he fought them, God told him to destroy them utterly, and they did not. And that was when God's anointing lifted off of him.
Let's stop. So I want you to catch this. David is living with the who?
With the king.
He's living with the king, but in this particular text, he's with the who?
He's with the Philistines.
He's with the Philistines. They are about to go fight who?
The Israelites.
The Amalekites. No, they're the Israelites.
They're gonna go fight.
God told Saul to do what to the Amalekites?
Destroy the Amalekites.
Destroy the Amalekites. How?
He told him to destroy them completely.
To wipe them off the face of the earth. And because he did not do what God called him to do, what happened?
They came back and attacked David.
They came back and attacked David, but more importantly, the glory
Departed.
lifted off of him. And I want to pause here and parenthetically digress that many of you right now, we have to get back in God's presence, because when we don't follow God's orders and his instructions, we risk not only losing the fight, but losing the glory. That's critical. He is on the run. He is on the run. And jump in there, Pastor Henry. He's on the run.
I think another thing that I love about the book of 1 Samuel is that it's a book of choices. Is that in this book, we see so many dichotomies, so many comparisons between what happens when you do it God's way versus when you do it your own way. And so even when we look at David, you talk about a man on the run. One of the things that David also shows us is that there are some conflicts that just seem to find gifted people.
Say that
Even
again.
if you don't ask for them, if you didn't do anything for them, there are some conflicts that just find gifted people. And a lot of times it's not about who you are, it's about what you're carrying. And so here is David, he is the king. And so he just seems to constantly find himself in conflict. Now, some of them he has cause with his choices, but some of them have found him, like the one with Saul, simply because he was called.
And here's what's crazy. David was on the run because Saul recognized him as his successor, and he possessed a tormenting spirit. Can you put this in your notice you're watching right now? Be careful when you're around toxic people, because David, yet he's not done anything to Saul, but Saul, because he possessed a tormenting spirit, caused him to lash out at David. I heard Dr. Darius Daniels say this and it messed me up. He said, be careful when you kill Goliath because you trigger Saul. That's good. I don't think you heard what I just said. Be careful when you kill Goliath because you trigger Saul. I'm going to say this and I pray 3 of y'all can receive this. I used to sit at home certain days saying, why so-and-so don't like me? And what did I do to them? You killed something. Yeah. Wow. See, sometimes it's not about what you did to them personally, it's what you triggered unintentionally. See, sometimes while you're busy over here saying I did it, you don't realize who watched it saying, if they could take that down, what could they do to me? So that's critical. I love what you said. Sometimes you attract issues because of your gift. That's critical. And I need you to catch this. 1 Samuel 30:1. 3 days later, when David and his men arrived home to their hometown Ziklag, they found that the Amalekites had made their raid on the Negev and Ziklag, and they had crushed Ziklag and burned it to the ground. Not only do we see a man on the run, but number two, we see a man out of position. The text says, while the men were missing, the enemy raided the city. Now, here's what's critical. Why are they missing? If you look at this with an untrained eye, you're going to say, Pastor Mike, they were going to battle. That's what men are supposed to do. No, the problem is they're going to a battle that they should have never been in the first place. Somebody jump in on that.
All right,
come on.
Because this gets me excited. Because here's what's really happening. David is having a feud with Saul.
Yeah.
So he's going to war with Israel. I'm going to say that again.
Say it again.
David is having a feud with Saul, so he goes to war against Israel.
Stop. So he's having a feud with Saul.
Yes.
Going to war with Israel.
That's it.
He finna go fight.
Yes.
The very people
that he called to lead.
He called to lead.
Yes.
Jump in there. Come on now.
So I'm looking at this and I'm tripping because so often, to put this in our context, we can put it in a church context, we can have an alt with the pastor and give up on the whole church, not realizing that we're getting ready to go fight the very thing that God has called to save us.
So is it critical? Is it possible that when people come to church and an usher rubbed them the wrong way, that they in turn start fighting the very people that God called them to lead, but they're too busy being on the run in their feelings? That's critical, isn't it? We see a man out of position. And this is so critical because as the head of our households, and I don't want to be patriarchal, but this is Father's Day weekend part 2. As the head of our households, I'm going to say this, there's just certain things that can't happen when I'm in the house. Somebody jumping. I mean, there's just certain things that can't happen when I'm in the house.
You know, and I noticed that, even sometimes in our calling and our purpose, it calls us sometimes by the house. I know when I come home, it's certain things. Raquel may have been telling Jace, don't do that. He liked to write on the TV with these magical markers. I'm like, Jace, don't do that. And it's done. She could say it 10 times, but when Daddy said, when I'm in the house, when I'm in position, it's just a difference when I say it. And I think sometimes pressure also calls us to be out of position. Pressure also calls us to be on the run. Because I know, for instance, in my own life, man, one of the most absent times of my life, in my children's life, is because I was dealing with so much pressure that I just didn't feel like I had the time to deal with them at that same time as well. So it's just something about a father being there just makes a difference.
That's true.
Even growing up, it was always, whenever I wanted to do something, it was always go ask your daddy, go ask your daddy, and go ask your daddy. Even though I knew I was my daddy's baby, I was the only girl, so anything I asked for was a yes, but it was always, well, go ask your daddy, or wait till your daddy get home and tell your daddy what you did. And that just, to this day, and I think I can share this, going through it with Pastor Mike, looking at him as my spiritual father, it's one thing to disappoint Pastor Hollis, but to think that I disappointed Pastor Mike, for him to say he don't want to talk to me.
Yeah, and because when a man's out of position, I want to talk about this because culturally, the more I begin to research who I am, I don't want to say your pastor is becoming woke. Because I think woke carries so many connotations. I was never asleep. I'm just diving deeper into my cultural and to my heritage. And the more I begin to research, and we was looking at this, Hollis, we was looking at how culturally when they had slaves, the first thing they would do was break the strongest male. They would take these men and treat them as studs and just breed men and rip us out of our homes. And as a consequence, a lot of men today are still running around living like studs. Living like studs. Culturally, they would take the male, they would try to breed the strongest male with the best woman, and they were trying to breed children. They would sell you off. So now families are divided, which is why now it feels natural to some men to just get some and leave. Because culturally, for years, that's how they treated us. And so systemically, this is why on Father's Day, you didn't see me run a lot of stats. Like 36% of children without a father in the home would be 45% without a father. I didn't do that because a lot of those stats are secretly used by conservatives to push this agenda that racism hasn't had an impact on the African American family. Did you hear what I just said right there? So what am I trying to realize? If we're not careful, the culture is trying to push the man out of position. I love every strong sister watching me right now. I want you to be strong. I want you to be anointed. But with the truth of the matter is, every person watching this stream has been positively or negatively impacted by some man. And it is our responsibility now to do our best in our local context to make sure the man is in position. Don't protest if you're not going to visit your children. Did you catch that? Don't try to be the best #1 artist in the country if you're not going to raise your kids. No, I'm telling us now that my greatest assignment is not standing before people right now on this live. My greatest assignment is being a father. It's being a father. Ministry starts at home. The text says while they were missing, some stuff got took. Look at this, and I need you to catch this. Why? Because we cannot stress again the criticality of our presence. We cannot stress again the criticality of our presence. Not only do I see a man on the run, not only do I see a man out of position, but look at the third thing I see. I see a man under pressure. Because look at this, it says, and they took captive the women and all who were there, both small and great, without killing anyone, and carried them off and went their way. When David and his men came to the city, behold, it was burned with fire. Their wives and their sons and their daughters were taken captive. Then David and the people who were left, watch this, lifted their voices and began to weep. What do we see when a man is out of position? His house gets raided. Somebody jump in there, man. Let's talk about that.
I think that's good, because even if we go all the way back to the book of Genesis and you look at Adam and Eve in the garden, the Bible says that the enemy was able, in the form of a serpent, to encounter Eve absent of her husband.
That's good. That's
much
good.
so that when God comes walking through the garden, he says, Adam,
where are you?
Where are you?
Jesus.
And so we always see where the enemy is able to have a power absent a man that he wouldn't have had we been present. The fall of man can be tied to the fact that when a man was supposed to be present, he wasn't.
Left her uncovered.
Let's talk about this. I want to take a different angle, and I think we'll have some fun with this, because let's talk about the potential for a man to be physically present yet morally absent. Because here's one of the things that I think David wrestled with. David wrestles with the fact that his home has been raided when just 3 chapters earlier he was the raider. And so now what David is dealing with is he's dealing with the fact that someone has done to him what he has done to others. And so now he's wrestling. If I could be honest, as a father to 4 girls, one of my biggest fears is that my daughters will encounter who I used to be.
Ooh.
And so one of the things that David is going up against is that now he's been raided, and he's happy because it says that the bodies weren't there, that they weren't killed. But 1 Samuel 27 shows us that when David raided, he killed everything. And so now here he is having to deal with the reality that now he's come up against somebody who is doing to him what he's done to others.
I want to deal with this. Let's talk about this. The criticality of decisions.
Yes.
That's critical, because David makes a decision to go fight. Nowhere in the text do the men make the decision, because they're loyal to a brother who is not in purpose. They lose something. That's critical. I want to stress to somebody watching right now, all of us can't make bad decisions. If I make a bad decision, it impacts too many people. We got to understand, and I pray you can receive this, that whenever we get out of position, what we tend to lose is not just on us. That's critical, ain't it? It's not just on us. My wife, every time the boys start going left, the first thing she say is, you need to go and hurry up and get home. Because again, she just understands that when daddy is in position, when a man is in position, and this sermon is not a slight to any female, but all of us can attest, successful, rich, poor, everybody want their daddy. Just want your daddy to say they're proud of you. My dad called me today and literally said, I answered the phone and said, hello. He said, what's up, hero? He said, boy, I'm just so proud of you, man. Riding down the street, your song come on the radio. Somebody called me about a speech you made. I'm just like, man, this boy. And at 36, I still feel 15. Hang up the phone. You heard my daddy just say it right. Because it's something, Jesus performs no miracles until his Father affirms him. I want to submit to somebody right now. Let's talk about David's bio. He is under pressure. Let's just talk about this a little bit. Number one, and y'all dive in. I'm going to give you a scenario. You jump in it. Pressure number one. His daddy and his brothers mistreated him. The prophet shows up to the house and says, the king is in your house. What do you do when the people around you don't see what's in you? Somebody jump in on that.
It's David was basically overlooked. You know, he asked about sons, and of course the sons came in. But what I love about that, you know, Pastor, and what God really used to bless me was that the oil didn't stop flowing until David showed up. And it was about, okay, somebody else, you may not be in that position yet, somebody else may be there, but don't worry, because the oil won't stop flowing until you show up. It doesn't matter how many times you're overlooked or picked, you know, people are picked before you. God, if the calling is on your life, if the anointing is on your life. I remember in my career earlier, man, I was a non-singer. I was a Kurt Franklin wannabe. They had every reason why I would not be successful. But sitting here today at Rock City, I have more #1 songs than any singer, any amazing person, because what God has for you, it is for you. It is for you.
And what's critical is, look, pressure. His daddy and his brothers mistreated him. His mentor, Saul, was trying to kill him. That's a word to an entrepreneur, because so many of us want mentors and don't even realize mentors can't handle your success. One of the things I have to kill in me daily is pride. You know, I'm surrounded, as you watch me right now, I'm just surrounded by some geniuses. This will soon be Dr. Leslie, and everybody knows Pastor Hollins and how gifted he is. Pastor Henry probably gonna have a PhD one day. James Fortune, he just slyway gave us a little slyway testimony with a slyway shade. You know, God, a humble brag. You know, God bless you. Can't even sing, but more number ones than everybody in the country. God bless you. No, but you got to know his heart to know how sincere he is about that. And one thing I have to always say is, God, I know you called me to kill thousands. One of them may kill tens of thousands. Don't throw a spear. When you're comfortable in your assignment, from my soul, I want Pastor Hollis's church to be better than mine. From my soul, I want each and one of you to accomplish everything you have. I started quarantine out in our first staff meeting, asking each and every one of you, what are you trying to accomplish? What are you trying to work on? Pastor Henry loves simple systems. He loves giving you 10 steps to this and 21 steps to this and 5 steps to this and practical ways to make it through life. I want him to be the African-American version of Nelsie Searcy. I want him to be the simple systems guy that they call him in from across the country to do just that. James Fortune got an album dropping this weekend. I want that joint to be #1 across all platforms so we can say, God, you did it again. Do you hear what I'm saying? I can't wait to get the phone call from Pastor Hollis. You're not going to believe this, Dad. They just called me to speak at so-and-so, so-and-so, so-and-so. It's 36,000 people there. I'm not going to be on the phone saying stuff like, well, you know, they should have called me for that. You ain't even got nothing to say yet. No, they should have called me for that. No, because I realized the Bible says, if I be lifted up. In other words, he was giving us a principle that if you stop trying to be seen, stop trying to be the draw and just be a good lifter, that's when God will bless you. So his daddy and his brothers are mistreating him. His mentor trying to kill him. He's living his life on the run. He's living amongst people who don't even like him. His city has been burned to the ground. Now his family is gone. I came to preach to somebody who has so much stuff going on in your life right now. Truth be told, you got a right to have a breakdown. Did you catch what I just said right there? Because so many times, and this is what I don't want to be. Oh, thank you, Jesus. Here's what I don't want to be. I don't want to preach so much hope that we breeze past how they feel. I think we can do that sometimes in church. Sometimes in church we can tell you be strong, when sometimes we need to say you got a right to be weak. I tell you what, just lay on the floor and cry for a day. Let that out. The Bible says right there, it's right there in verse 4, then David and the people who were with him lifted their voices and wept until there was no strength in them to weep. What do you do when you ain't got no tears left? I want to talk about this, and I want to push each one of you. I'm going to push this side. I'm going to push this side, okay? This side, I want y'all to converse amongst each other. You deal with heart attacks. This side deal with strokes. We're going to do it again. You got heart attacks. Y'all work together. You got strokes. Because I want to submit to somebody watching me tonight that there are 2 people on this stream tonight. Some of you have been through so many things in your life. You're dealing with spiritual heart attacks. The other half is having spiritual strokes. Now, what's the difference? You feel a heart attack. A stroke happens and you don't know what happened. All right, so I'm going to deal with this. Here we go. Rock, paper, scissors right here. We're going to go to it. See who go first. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. All right, it's on you. Let's go. Strokes
typically happen when there's a blockage of some type. And so something that's supposed to flow regularly and smoothly is now your progress is impeded because you ran into something.
Did you hear what he just said? Do you hear what he just said? He said a stroke is a blockage. He just pulled that one out. A stroke is a blockage. So here it is. Our relationship is supposed to flow, but something caused a blockage. Now I don't feel. What went numb because of a blockage you didn't see being formed? Do you see this? What if David would have said, you know what? I don't even need this stuff. Y'all want to kill me, want to talk about me? I'm losing my family too. Part of the problem with being gifted is that you are so great at what you do that people forget you going through the same thing they going through. I had somebody tell me, Pastor Mike, I need you to do so-and-so, so-and-so. I said, hey, I'm in a pandemic too. I'm worried about my kids catching it too. I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to pay people too. I'm trying to figure out where my mind is too. The only problem is don't ever be so caught up in your pain that you don't think nobody else is going through pain. And I came to submit to somebody watching me right now, just because you have days when you can't stop crying and hurting, It doesn't mean you're weak, it means you're human. Somebody in the comments just type, I'm human. That's why I can shout on Sunday and might cuss you out on Thursday. I'm human, which is why I got advice for you, but sometimes don't know what to say to me. I'm human, which is why I said I'm done with them, but 2 months later be right back with them, because the good I would do, I do if not, but the bad I find myself doing. I am human, which is why I said I wouldn't smoke again, but when life got hard, because I wasn't spiritually grounded and didn't have disciplines, I ran back to stuff that pleases flesh rather than stuff that keeps my spirit strong, because I am human. Stop beating yourself up because you are having human moments. The problem is when we have human cycles. Blockage. Let's talk. Now, you're not off the hook, Leslie. Stroke. He said it's a blockage. What else do you see with a stroke?
So typically a stroke is hidden. You have certain signs that appear outwardly, but you don't know it's happening until after it's happened.
Which is why they ask you to start doing things. What are some of the tests they do? Quick tests to see if you're having a stroke.
They say to smile.
Look, oh my God. Come here. Say it again. So one of the tests is when they want to know if you're having a stroke, one of the quick tests they do is what? They tell you to smile. I want to submit that somebody who's watching me tonight, one of the greatest signs that you're dealing with a spiritual or an emotional stroke is that you don't have the ability to smile during pain. You don't have the joy that you used to be able to pull on. Let's talk about heart attacks. We're over here now. Heart attacks. Let's go.
One of the number one killers of heart attack is congenital heart failure, which means it happens over time, over generations, things that have been building up, that it didn't start with me. It didn't start with you, but it's been generational. And if you look at what David went through, every stage was a buildup, was building up to where we led to.
So one of the signs that you can see that David is suffering a heart attack is that we colonize with people who share our condition. And so David in 1 Samuel 22, we discover that he is surrounded by other men who are discontented. Yeah. So when something goes wrong, that contentment now turns towards him because he's surrounded by people who all are sharing the same heart issues because they're disregarded, they're in debt, they're thrown away. They're all people who have been looked over and pushed away. And because they've been pushed away, now here they come. When they get to a situation like this, the first thing they do is turn on each other.
This is why, for everybody who's watching me right now, for everybody who can't figure out why it is for the first time in a long time, there are blacks, whites, Latinos, Koreans, and everyone standing in lines protesting, is because you are witnessing the colonizations of people who have the same pain. Their heart has been pulled on in a way like never before. Pastor James said that beautifully. He said it's happening over time. So the stroke, boom, it just hits you. The heart attack can be congenital, which means it's in your bloodline, which is why when you go to hospital, the first thing they say, you ever had somebody in your family? Generational. Now, who attacked? Let's go back to the text. Who attacked their families? What's the name of the group that attacked their families?
The Amalekites.
The Amalekites. Can I ask you a question? When Moses is on the hill and he got his hands raised, Joshua is in the valley fighting who?
The Amalekites.
So what do we see? We see an ancient enemy. Congenitive.
Yeah.
So didn't you say earlier somebody was supposed to wipe the Amalekites out?
In 1 Samuel 15, just 15 chapters before this, God told Saul to wipe them out.
Stop. So Moses beat him, but he didn't wipe him out.
Yeah.
Saul beat him.
He killed the people, but he kept the king alive.
Girl, say that again.
He killed the people, but he kept the king alive.
Which means, so for all of my preachers watching, this is how we prepare sermons, okay? So we got to take what she say and make it preachable, make it applicable. So historically, he killed the people,
right,
but he kept the king, which means what?
He kept the head alive. And everybody knows if you're going to kill a snake, you got to get rid of the head.
You got to get rid of it. Or?
He also didn't kill the spirit that God was trying to eradicate.
It wasn't just about wiping them out. It was doing away with the spirit of who they were. This is why it's so hard for certain organizations to grow, because people leave, but their spirit don't. This is why sometimes the Holy Spirit spoke to me the other day. I'm preaching if y'all have received that. Why y'all sleeping on me now? Y'all be having y'all little intellectual stuff. Give me some stuff too. Clap for me. I'm over here giving y'all some stuff. Clap for me. Hear me now, because you can get rid of folk, but you'll get rid of their spirit, which is why you break up with people and end up with the same type person, because you broke up with that person, but you never disconnected from that spirit. I come against the spirit of a thing, which is why look at me, which is why we marched in the 60s and got the ability to vote, which is why we marched in the 60s and got the ability to vote, which is why King died, but now at least segregation was ruined. Now we can go to whatever school we want to, we can eat at every restaurant we want to, but the problem is we got rid of the legislation, but we didn't kill the spirit. And because we didn't kill the spirit, although it's been dormant, just because it's dormant don't mean it's dead. And the problem with America is we keep having flare-ups. It is stuff that is dormant that we think is over. So because you live in a vanilla suburb, because you got an S550, because you making 6 figures a year, because your family got a 401k and y'all can go to Florida twice a year, you actually think you become something when you don't realize who cares if you come out if you don't kill the spirit. I need 100 folk watching me right now to say, as for me and my family, I'm killing the spirit off my family. I destroyed the spirit of poverty. I destroyed the spirit of divorce. I destroyed the spirit of lust. Anything in my bloodline that is not like God, I cancel it right. Y'all gonna make me have church today. I gotta kill the spirit. Give somebody an air high five and say, you got to kill the spirit. You got to kill the spirit. That stuff that happened in Birmingham 50 years ago, we got past it, but the spirit is still here. The spirit is still here. So right now, in the name of Jesus, which is why I don't think it's coincidence that the same Woolworth, a name Woolworth that tried to kill our granddaddy, out of nowhere this past week, it ain't the same company, but the same name popped up with more racism. It's because you can do away with the entity, but if you don't address the spirit, say it again, say it in the mic.
Wrestle not against flesh and blood.
I don't care if Starbucks gonna give us $2 million. Are we gonna address the spirit? I don't care if Netflix cutting $60 million checks. Are we gonna address the spirit? As a people, we gotta stop being so satisfied with the headlines and these handouts. This is how I feel right now. Black Lives Matter. Well, here's a section on Netflix. Thank you. But justice. Hey, God bless you. Everybody can eat free. Hey, God bless you. We want justice. Hey. Here, we're gonna put the blackout on our social media page. Who cares if you're giving us public displays of affection if you're not faithful when we get home?
That's good. That's good, Pastor.
Don't just tell me. Thank you, that beautiful prophet from Canada. You're gonna have to do more than just say it. That's critical. Generationally, he didn't destroy some stuff. As a father, there are 3 fathers on this stage right now. We're not being patriarchal, but it is Father's Day. So 3 fathers on this stage, 4 fathers right now. It's some stuff I got to kill. It's some stuff I got to kill. It's some stuff I got to kill, James. I love my son with all my heart. I had a child out of wedlock. If I don't deal with that lust in me, I don't know how it's gonna come out in my babies. I got to kill that. They handsome, they athletes. I gotta kill, it's some stuff. And the problem with us, we are never real about the stuff we gotta kill. Come on.
Oh, that's so good, because what I discovered as I became an adult, a lot of my issues and struggles, my dad told me later that he struggled with, but he never talked to me about them when I was young. So now I'm watching my son. I'm seeing some of the stuff he like. I say, yeah, I already see it. I'm seeing some of the pictures. I'm seeing some of the stuff he's doing. But it's like I have real hard conversations with my sons, and my dad didn't do that, and I don't judge him for it. It was just different then. But I think now it's time for us to be more transparent. We talked about it a few weeks ago. The transparency is what's going to produce transformation.
Transparency. We got to stop being silent about stuff that's killing us generationally. You hear me? Lust can kill. Here's the danger. And can I play devil's advocate?
Yes, sir.
All right, so if you're a whore, or if you're a player, or if you like sleeping around, whatever you want to call it, okay? That's what you do.
Yeah.
The root of it is what? Lust. Can I ask you a question? So it means if I pass lust on to my child, I can't determine what he gonna lust for. I can't determine the fruit. I can only build on the root. Y'all don't hear what I just said. So what's another spirit we deal with? What's some stuff we got to kill as men? Let's be honest tonight.
For me, one thing is the spirit of poverty. And I think so many times poverty is tied to what we do or do not have in our bank account. When truth be told, Pastor, it's so much deeper than that. I remember you were up preaching one time and you kind of juxtaposed a scarcity mindset with a surplus mindset.
Yes.
And I wrestled with that for weeks because I realized I've been able in some seasons to accumulate a certain amount of stuff, only to fall victim to the same decisions. And ultimately, poverty doesn't have anything to do with your deposits. It's about your decisions. And that's a spirit for me that it's got to die. It's got to die in my family.
I think we have to overcome the lack of spiritual authority for men. And here's one of the reasons I say that is because I think as men, we all have stories for how we became who we are. But at some point, we've got to come to the realization that we cannot change our past, but we can change our futures. I have heard too many men say as an excuse for who they are, that's how I was raised. You don't know what I went through. But we can never go back and change what we went through, but we can change what we're going to go through in the future. And I think if as men, if we don't take spiritual authority over our families and learn the ability to not just try to lead our women physically, but learn to lead them spiritually, learn to lead our children spiritually, learn to raise them up in the fear and admonition of the Lord. One of the things that blessed my life this week is that we caught my daughter had wasted a whole bottle of olive oil. And when we went in there to go and find out what she was doing, we discovered that she said, oh, I was praying for my baby sister. And so she had wasted a whole bottle of oil, and we found my little baby daughter, my 1-year-old, she got oil all on her head because the 2-year-old in there trying to anoint her and pray for her. And so what I'm sitting there saying is that this is the kind of legacy we got to leave, is that our children will do what they see us do, and that goes both ways. That goes both positive and negative. And so we've got to pass on this idea of spiritual identity and authority.
And see, this is why my kids aren't going back to school in the fall, okay? They're not going back to school in the fall. I'm in the process of emptying my office out at home. I'm finna buy a couple tables. I'm gonna put a TV in there. There's gonna be learning stations. I am so grateful for this opportunity because, again, I'm gonna say this. I do not believe the world system was supposed to be the primary educator of my child. Did you catch what I just said, Leslie? I do not believe it. We're going to have the church, I am. Now, I'm going to say this, and I pray my sisters who's watching don't say, well, Pastor Mike, you being patriarchal. No, I'm not. I am taking responsibility for those God has given me. I can't wait. Hear me when I can't wait. I'm already writing a curriculum out on how I'm going to juxtapose worldly things and godly things. Where I'm going to talk about the first week 1 at our school this summer, this fall, week 1 is stewardship. What is that in the earthly realm? Responsibility. Then what's the assignment for it? Why, PMJ? Because taking spiritual authority ain't just whooping them. Let's talk, what does taking spiritual authority on a practical level mean?
Really what you said, Pastor Mike, that's the way it was. That was the difference in the 60s, is they were the primary teachers. And that's what it is. Taking spiritual authority is saying, I'm going to teach my children. I'm going to bring them up in the admonition of the Lord. That's something that we hear a lot during child dedication, is I'm going to raise them in the fear and admonition. Well, it's very clear that the world has no regard for God. However, as spiritual beings, that's our primary source. So we have to take the role and say, no, I'm going to educate my child in that.
So, and I love it. Our children are not just going to do what we tell them. They're going to mimic what they see us doing. You got me? Like my boys, they'll see me and say, get a room, Dad. I want them to see me just kind of rubbing up on Mama. I want them to see me. I love it. I will walk in the room in the middle of the night and just say, Father, in Jesus' name, Father. And they'll open their eyes and kind of roll over. I'm trying, because here it is again. Let's talk about this. What are some things we got to kill? Come on, let's talk. What's some more things we got to kill as men?
I think, and you talked about how do we take spiritual authority? I want to combine those two things. I think it's this idea of prayerlessness, and how we struggle to have spiritual authority because we're struggling to pray. We have to understand that if God sacrificed his son to die for us, then that would lead me to believe that he also wants to speak to us. Like if he loved me enough to sacrifice his only son for me, then he probably wants to have an intimate and interactive relationship with me. And so I think that it's impossible for us to have spiritual authority when we are not talking to the supreme or sovereign authority figure. And I think that's something that we've got to kill, that lack of prayer, especially amongst men, because what the devil is afraid of is a man that can pray.
Yeah.
I think something too that's important for men to kill, and I know we're gonna deal with it this weekend and rock the house with Rockefellers, is that spirit of control and having to have control, having to be in control. And I think for me, I struggled because I always learned in church about, wives, submit to your husbands, and men were the leader. I grew up Baptist, so at one time women weren't even allowed in the pulpit. So I was always just without even knowing subconsciously, like, we in control, like we control, we make. And I think for me, when I went through some things in my life that many of you know about, I learned that my issue was it really wasn't so much anger as that when I wasn't in control, I got out of control. Yeah. I had to be in control. That control was like a drug. Control can be like it can be addicted to control. That whenever you're not in control, when you're in control, you're at peace, you're at ease. But I think that controlling spirit with a lot of men destroys families, destroys homes, and so many other areas in your life.
I want to submit to somebody. There's some stuff we got to kill. There's some stuff we got to kill, and I'm trying to mimic that as a father. I mean this, man. When I make mistakes, this morning I woke up and Xander has to be out of the house by 8 o'clock so he can be at practice. Practice starts at 8:45, but you can start getting there by 8:20. I want the coach to see that he's always on time, always where he needs to be. So at 8 o'clock, we always leaving out the door. To this morning, I sat there, it's 8:10. I'm just laying in the bed looking at him like, I wonder is he gonna get up and come in and say, Dad, I'm ready. I just sat there, so around 8:25, I said, Xander. He came running there. I said, hey, you weren't gonna tell me it's time to go? He said, I thought you knew. I said, no. I said, if you see ain't nobody moved, that's when you get up and you say, hey, Dad, I got to be here. Watch this. It's not my job to put water in your bucket. It's not my job to make sure you got your cleats. He left his mask today. It ain't my job to make sure you got your mask. I'm not doing none of that. You are of age now. So I'm having to understand, watch this, but as I'm driving, I heard my pastor say this and I want to share with you. He said, my son is a teenager, which means I'm going to fuss at him 12 times a day, which means I probably need to hug him 24 times. Because I don't only want to hear me coming down. He's going to be able to handle my critique because he lived for my compliments. Did you catch what I just said? So the whole car ride, I'm like, bro, you're going to kill him today. I said, his thigh was hurting a little bit. The whole car ride, I rubbed his thigh, Father, in Jesus' name. You feel it getting stronger? Oh, it's getting stronger today. I got the special powers now. I'm praying for him. You got me? I'm kissing him on the head. I'll walk up behind him and just love on him. I don't want him to feel like he's never felt loved. They carried off the women and children and everyone else without killing anyone. Warren W. Wiersbe said, perhaps the Lord permitted this raid on Ziklag to encourage David to get out of the enemy's territory and go back to Judah where he belonged. What if God allowed this to happen? Because sometimes rejection is our direction. That's critical, ain't it? I love what Dr. William Fluker said. He called it dangerous memories. Too many men have dangerous memories that just because you survived it, it's still living in you. Dangerous memories. We have to deal with the fact that so many brothers and so many sisters didn't grow up with a positive male figure in your life. So you're running from something and don't even realize in your process of running from it, you're becoming it. I don't think y'all hear me tonight, man. This is good. Let's go. We got to go because we'll sit here all night. Let's talk about this, man. Let's talk about this. Not only do we see a man on the run, not only do we see a man out of position, not only do we see a man under pressure, but we also see a man who understands there's power in his presence. Power in his presence. The men got together and said, we need to kill David. They were greatly distressed for the people that spoke of stoning him. Yeah. This is critical. We followed you in the battle. We didn't agree with your decision. We followed you in the battle. Now our children gone. So they're meeting now trying to stone him. Every man for his sons and his daughters were grieved. Here it is. But David encouraged himself. Can I be honest with you? Why is it encouraging you is so easy, but encouraging me is so difficult? Can we talk about that? Somebody jump in there. We're gonna go.
I think one of the things that we see with David is that David experiences something he's experiencing really for the first time. And that is the fact that his decisions have an effect on other people.
Yeah.
For the first time, David has to see that what I'm doing will affect other people. Yeah. And so I think he shows us a great leadership principle that God often takes us through as gifted people, is that God gives us hills to conquer before he gives us mountains to climb.
That's good.
Is that sometimes God says to us, I'm giving you something that's a taste of what I'm giving you in the future. Because here comes David getting ready to lead an entire kingdom. And what God is trying to say to him is that, David, you can't just make choices based on what seems convenient to you, because other people got something to lose. When people decide to follow you, they're making a big decision. When people decide to support you, they're making a big decision. And so he says, David, I'm allowing you to have this moment so that you can see what it feels like to overcome this. So when you get to that, you know what to do.
And it's a different way. It's a different way. I never forget. You're seeing that now pastoring. You're seeing that now pastoring. When you're sitting in the 2 seat or the 3 seat or the 4 seat, sometimes you can say stuff like, why he playing with people? He just need to tell them like it is till you get in that seat. And now I used to always push on you, the pastor's heart. Now your heart bleed differently. God is showing David, hey, when you become king, don't run into stuff. It's not only going to cost you. I never forget, because I'm radical, I'm wild. I never get the time I did something that went viral in our city. And I was just joking on Facebook, and then it went viral. And I came into the conference room, and all y'all was looking at me. I never forget that day. Y'all had y'all little intervention. You remember that? And I walk into there, and I swallowed. I said, all right, come on, let's go. And I sat down, and I went around the room and let everybody say what they wanted to say. James, they giving it to me. Pastor, you got to come on now. We're going to follow you to the end of the world. But it's like, come on. Don't give the people the bullets to shoot you with. And they just talking and hear me. No, my problem is, what does this mean on your families? And what does it mean? And I'm sitting there, and for the first time, all I could say was, you're right. Because like David, I realized real quickly, my decisions hurt everybody. They hurt everybody. They have to be prayed over. They have to be thought out. I like this, because look at what happens. Then he said to Abner the priest, watch this, bring me the ephod. Who wants to tell him what the ephod is?
So the ephod was the priestly garment. It literally had a stone in it for every tribe. And whenever you wanted to go inquire of the Lord and wanted an answer, you had to go and get the ephod.
It had a stone from every tribe.
Every tribe.
So this was like the infinity stone jacket.
Yes.
Every tribe. That's a great description.
That's a great description of it.
It is the infinity stone jacket. That's what you're telling me.
Yes.
So the ephod would sort of be like when the glory falls at our church.
Yes.
And I go put the jacket on.
Yes.
They don't even know what to call it at the Rock City. They go, oh, he put it on. He put it on. So he said, go get me my war clothes.
Yes.
It also contained the 2 sacred stones, the Urim and the Thummim. And these were 2 stones that we don't know how they worked, but somehow, whenever they were seeking an answer from God, there was some kind of reaction that the stones would give to let them know which direction God was calling them to go.
So he says, bring me the ephod. This is critical. So Abner brought it. Then David asked the Lord, should I chase after the band of raiders? Now I want to talk about, and I got to go because I'm running out of time, 1,100 people on Facebook, over 500 on YouTube. This is crazy. I want you to see this right now, okay? Why is this important? If my wife and my children have been kidnapped, ain't no praying. Let's stop being spiritual for a second. Ain't neither one of y'all finna be in there telling some, Father God, shall I go get my wife? Well, some of y'all may have to pray about going to get your wife. I don't know who I'm preaching to right now, but if you go home tonight, like, she gone. Oh man, she gone. Dang, she gone. Dang, but no, ain't no praying.
It's time to go.
This reveals his spiritual maturity in the midst of calamity. We don't find out what you made of when you win it. We find out what you made of when you in pain. The text says he prayed and asked God, should I chase after this band of raiders? Will I catch them? And the Lord told him, yes, go after them. You will surely recover everything that was taken from you. That's critical, ain't it? I want to pause for a minute before I let them say something before we leave and declare you're going to recover all. I want to speak that. I want to change that because that sounds good, but it may not be accurate. You're going to recover everything God told you to pursue. Because there's certain stuff the enemy came and took, God wanted took. It's certain stuff God, and I believe David knew everything shouldn't be recovered. Let's get ready to lead tonight. What are you hearing from God concerning what we talked about tonight? Jump in there.
It just reminded me of the importance of seeking God in everything that you do.
Yeah.
When you were sharing that last part, I thought about Moses, and he asked God, should I go up from this place? And he said, I can't go up if your presence doesn't go. If your spirit doesn't go with me, I'm not willing to move from here. So no matter what it looks like you lost, if God isn't there with you and you aren't sure of his presence, don't move until you know.
Pastor Hollis, jump in there.
I think it shows the sovereignty of God, because David is dealing with having lost his family and the families of his men because he decided to bust a move that God hadn't given him permission to. And he's able to intelligently and immediately apply this lesson and say, now, even though I want to go get my family, even though they're putting pressure on me saying they're going to kill me if we don't do something, let me stop and pray. Because the only thing that would make this situation worse is if I repeat the same mistake again.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Pastor Harry.
One of the things that we see, the custom of that day, was that when raiders came in, they would kill the men, take the women and children and the elderly. In essence, they would only kill those who they knew were a threat. And so what I want to say, especially to men, is one of the things that I'm praying for all of our men is that we re-engage and recapture our emotional maturity. I think one of the attacks of the enemy is trying to keep men from being intimate. If he can stop a man from being intimate, he can pull him out of his spiritual relationship. He can stop him from being a great husband. He can stop him from being a great father, stop him from being a great leader. Because the moment we stop learning to handle our emotions, we stop seeing people as people. And so one of the things I'm praying for is that God would give men again the ability to really see that intimacy is not weakness, but it's actually strength.
Pastor Hollis, Pastor James.
Yeah, I see, as I look at David and like you said, the prayer, I see profitable pressure. I see pressure that we actually profit from. I look at some situations we would never leave if it wasn't for pressure. There's some songs like Big that would have never been written if it wasn't for pressure.
Yeah.
There's some places in our life that we wouldn't pray if it wasn't for pressure. And so I think I'm calling, all men, all people, all Rock City family, the world, to not look at pressure as a bad thing, but maybe there's some profit in the pressure you're going through, that maybe God's trying to push you closer to him, not further away from him. And that's what I'm praying and believing for.
Say that again. What he said?
Profit in the pressure.
Profit in the pressure. Profitable pressure. That God is not taking you through this just to take you through it. It is painful, but it's profitable. It's painful, but it's profitable. And I want to prophesy, man, that yes, we have some things that we're going through that may not be comfortable, but they're going to be profitable. You got me? One of the things God's been dealing with me with, I heard the Spirit of the Lord tell me this week, God always gives you a word in part. He said, Michael, it's time to release your church. And I was like, ooh, what that mean? What that mean? What that mean? And what I believe the Holy Spirit was telling me was, Michael, you've built it. Now let them nurture it. Did you catch what I'm saying right there? I believe a lot of times what God is doing in our lives, I wonder who was advising David before he left for that battle. See, them the questions I have now going on 40. Who was he talking to? He told the priest to bring him the ephod, but where was the priest in the decision? Or was he so prideful at that season where, jump in there, come on, let's go.
You just hit something, because I think David, again, he brings to the forefront the battle between our humanity and our divinity. David is divine enough to know where to get the answer, but he's so human, he don't always ask.
Say it again.
He is divine enough to know exactly where to get the answer, but he is so human that he doesn't always come and ask.
Say it again. Say it again.
He's asking God, shall I go up now? But as Pastor Hollis said, when he goes the first time, he doesn't inquire of God. He allows his circumstance to dictate his decision. And he shows us this wrestle that we have between the part of us that knows that God wants the best for us and he knows what to do, but also our humanity that's sometimes so prideful that when we make up our decision, we want to go and do what we want to do.
Like, it's crazy. The priest is there the whole time. The priest said, you know what, I'm going with you. Like, the priest left Israel to go with him, and you never thought to pray before you move in with the enemy. The exact people who don't like you and just took you in, hoping that you would help them to destroy. It's crazy.
We can do this all night.
All night.
Because again, David's challenge is that he's constantly fighting this battle of choices. Again, this book is all about choices. It's Saul who did it his way versus David. Saul, who was anointed by man, versus David, who was anointed by God. Saul, who was anointed out of a flask, which is man-made, versus David, who was anointed out of a horn, who is God-made. It's this juxtaposition between how people do things and what happens when you make your choices. And this same David makes this choice to go this direction because he thinks this is the path of least resistance.
Right.
Never realizing that sometimes God wants you in the midst of hard things.
Yes.
That he leaves you in the territory with a Saul.
Right.
Because he needs to learn how to teach you how to handle it, because he knows one day you're going to have an Absalom.
Yeah. Yeah.
He knows one day you're going to be on the other end.
Right.
That one day you're going to have to battle with that. And so sometimes he allows us to stay in difficult situations, and he says, don't run away.
Right.
I'm going to grow you away.
Right.
Jump in there, jump in there.
That's crazy, because even in that, like when you speak about Absalom, had he not dealt with Saul in the proper perspective, I wonder how left the story between Absalom could have gone, because Saul treated him like a son. Yes. You know, Saul took him in, he made him second only to his child. Yes. And then even his child recognized who David was, to the point that he said, no, I will follow you to the ends of the earth. Yes. But, you know, again, had he gone in there with the big head, oh, I've been anointed king 3 or 4 times, I know who I am.
Yes.
How would they have played out?
James, jump in there. I see you, bro.
Yeah, it was when you said something, I thought about, you said God keeps us in certain situations sometimes because he knows what's down the road. Of course, we see to the corner, he sees around the corner. And I just learned during this whole virus.
Stop, say that again, James. Come on.
Yeah, we see to the corner, but God sees around the corner. And so what I learned during this virus, about this virus is that when you get vaccinated, they actually put some of the virus in you because it builds up your immune system so that when the real attack comes, your body, you're able to fight it, you're able to defend against it. And so for me, it was like, that's why God puts us. I believe that's why he lets us stay in certain situations, put some of that in us so that when the real attack comes, our spiritual immune system is built up. We can handle the fight, we can handle the pressure.
We can be here all night.
That's so good.
We can be here all night because so many people are wrestling.
Yeah.
So many people are wrestling, and what I'm trying to be as a spiritual father, what I'm trying to be right now as a pastor, I am trying to position myself to where God, get this stuff out of me so I don't become a heel to those I'm trying to lead. What happens if I take y'all to a battle we shouldn't be in? That's why when everybody was asking me to fight the church in our city, who made some comments, and everybody's coming, I knew something was going on. My page followers was jumping by the hundreds every day. Like, when Pastor Mike gonna say something? And the Holy Spirit, I'm grateful because tonight I see, had we ran to a battle we shouldn't have been in, what would have got lost?
Wow, that's so good.
I'm trying to be a part of the solution. I like that. Like, I'm grateful now that I get phone calls like the one I got today from Miles College, where they're finna be the first HBCU to have a Black Lives Matter mural on their campus, and our church was able to pay for that and say, hey, no, we got y'all, let's make history. No, that 3,000, let's make history. You get what I'm saying? So I'm ready to fight the battles. Let's stop, we in it too much. The God-ordained battles.
Yeah.
That's good. Wow.
Father, in Jesus' name, I pray that you cover and keep us. Oh God, I pray for every person who has some things that they need to kill so it won't touch our posterity. God, I thank you for some people who are holy and humble. God, I thank you that we're so sincere that even our cameraman got his hand lifted right now. Because God, although we're doing the work of God, we don't want to lose our love for God. So God, we ask in this moment that you cover us. We ask in this moment that you keep us. God, I pray right now for those who have lost some stuff because they're in some situations they shouldn't be in. God, I claim spiritual authority for every man and woman watching me tonight. Yes, God, I thank you that you're doing what eyes have not seen and ears have not heard. God, I ask in this moment that if we have gotten out of the will of God, bring us back into your will. God, I thank you for grace, because the scripture says that he burned their city to the ground, kidnapped the women and children, but nobody died. So God, I'm grateful that it's some stuff that I lost during my seasons of being out of position, but I still got it back, God. So I declare prophetically, we shall recover all. We shall recover all. It's in Jesus' name we pray. And everybody said, amen. Come on, clap your hands.